Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora Dawn and watched his world die. The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark moon, its surface covered in strange metal patterns that glowed with deadly light. Below them, New Haven Colony burned. The planet where Jake had lived with his wife Lisa and daughter Katie was turning into a ball of fire and molten rock. The alien weapon fired again. Another beam of pure energy struck the northern continent, and Jake saw the mountains melt like ice cream under a blowtorch. He gripped the metal rail so hard his knuckles turned white. His family was down there somewhere in that hell. Or had been. Now there was nothing left but burning rock and poisonous clouds. Captain Helen Burke put her hand on his shoulder. "Jake, I'm sorry. There was nothing we could do." Jake did not answer. He could not speak. The Aurora Dawn was just a small scout ship with no weapons that could hurt the alien Death Moon. They had arrived too late to warn anyone and too weak to fight back. All they could do was watch and record everything for Earth Command. The alien ship was huge, bigger than any human city. Scientists called it the Harvester because it destroyed planets and took their resources. The aliens themselves were called the Vorthic Empire. No one knew much about them except that they had been destroying human colonies for 2 years now, moving closer and closer to Earth. Jake had been away on a supply mission when the attack began. He was supposed to come home to Lisa's birthday party. Katie had made him promise to bring chocolate from the trading station. Now there would be no party, no chocolate, no home to return to. There was nothing left but Ash and his burning need for revenge. 3 months later, Jake stood in a military briefing room on Mars Station. The walls were covered with pictures of destroyed colonies and technical drawings of Vorthak ships. General Patricia Stone stood at the front of the room, her face hard as metal. "Operation Bloodhound is our last chance," she said. "The Harvester is moving toward Earth. Our defense fleets cannot stop it. But we have developed something that might work. From the inside." She pressed a button and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a small device that looked like a computer chip. "This is a quantum virus," General Stone continued. "If we can upload it to the Harvester's main computer, it will destroy all their systems. The ship will be helpless. But someone has to get inside first." Jake raised his hand. "I volunteer." "Sit down, Commander Morrison," the general said. "This mission is suicide. We need someone who can think clearly, not someone looking for revenge. With respect, General, no one knows the Vorthak ship patterns better than me. I've been studying them for 3 months. I've memorized every scan we have of the Harvester. And I'm the only one here who has nothing left to lose." The room was quiet. Everyone knew Jake's story. Everyone knew what happened to New Haven. General Stone looked at him for a long time. "The plan requires major changes to your body. You'll need fake skin to look like the other human prisoners. Neural implants to help you understand their language. The surgery might kill you. Then I'll die trying to save Earth instead of sitting here doing nothing," Jake said. 2 weeks later, Jake lay on an operating table while doctors worked on his body. They gave him artificial skin that would fool Vorthik scanners. They put tiny computers in his brain that would help him understand the alien language. They changed his blood chemistry so he could survive on their ship. When he woke up, Jake looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself. His skin was pale gray, and there were small scars where the doctors had worked. But his eyes were the same. They still burned with the need to make the aliens pay for what they had done to his family. Captain Burke visited him in the medical bay. "Are you sure about this, Jake? Once you're on that ship, you'll be completely alone. No backup, no rescue mission. If something goes wrong, you'll die there." Jake touched the quantum virus device hidden under his artificial skin. "Good. If I can't complete the mission, at least I'll die fighting them instead of hiding behind Earth's defenses." The final part of the plan was simple but dangerous. Jake would take a modified shuttle and let himself be captured by a Vorthak patrol. All human prisoners were taken to the Harvester to work as slaves. Once inside, he would find a way to the main computer and upload the virus. Jake's shuttle drifted in space near the edge of the solar system. He had shut down most systems to look like a damaged refugee ship. According to intelligence reports, the Vorthak always captured human survivors for slave labor. He did not wait long. The patrol ship appeared like a shadow against the stars. It was smaller than the Harvester, but still 10 times bigger than Jake's shuttle. Strange lights moved across its hull, and Jake could see weapon ports opening to target his ship. A voice spoke in his mind, translated by the neural implants. Human vessel, you will prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate death. Jake put his hands up even though they could not see him yet. My ship is damaged. I surrender. The Vorthak ship grabbed his shuttle with some kind of energy beam and pulled it into a cargo bay. Jake waited as alien soldiers surrounded his ship. When the airlock opened, he got his first close look at Earth's enemies. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with 4 arms and reptile-like skin covered in natural armor plates. Their faces were long and narrow with large yellow eyes. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. The leader pointed his weapon at Jake. You are now property of the Vorthak Empire. You will work until you die. Disobedience will be punished with pain. Jake nodded and let them put chains on his wrists. Inside, his heart was pounding with excitement. The first part of his plan had worked. He was inside their ship, and soon he would be taken to the Harvester itself. As they dragged him to a prison cell, Jake memorized everything he saw. The corridors were huge and filled with strange technology. Alien symbols covered the walls, and the air smelled like metal and something else he could not identify, but what surprised him most was the behavior of his captors. Human intelligence said the Vorthak were like robots, all thinking the same thoughts. But Jake saw small differences between them. One soldier walked with a slight limp. Another kept adjusting his armor like it did not fit right. The leader paused to examine a damaged wall panel with what looked like curiosity. Maybe the aliens were not as simple as Earth Command believed. Maybe that would help him complete his mission. Or maybe it would make everything more complicated. Jake sat in his cell and thought about Lisa and Katie. Soon their deaths would be avenged. Soon the aliens would pay for destroying New Haven. He touched the hidden virus device and smiled grimly. The Vorthak had no idea what was coming for them. The transport ship carrying Jake and 50 other human prisoners docked with the Harvester after 3 days of travel. Jake pressed his face to the small window in his cell and stared at the massive alien structure. It was not just a weapon or a warship. It was an entire world made of metal and strange technology floating in space. The Harvester stretched out in all directions, covered in towers and domes and glowing energy conduits. Jake could see smaller ships moving around it like insects around a giant hive. Lights flickered in patterns across its surface, and he realized those lights were windows. There were millions of them. This was not just a military vessel. It was a home to countless alien beings. Guards dragged the human prisoners out of their cells and through long corridors that seemed to go on forever. Jake tried to memorize the route, but the passages twisted and branched in ways that made no sense. The artificial gravity kept changing direction, and sometimes they walked on walls or ceilings as if that was perfectly normal. Other aliens moved through the corridors, and Jake was surprised to see they were not all soldiers. Some were smaller and carried tools instead of weapons. Others wore different colored clothing and seemed to be in charge of various tasks. He even saw what looked like children, though they were already taller than most adult humans. The prison area was deep inside the ship, in a section with lower ceilings and dimmer lights. Hundreds of human prisoners lived in large cells that held 20 people each. They wore simple gray clothes and looked tired and scared. Most had been captured from other destroyed colonies. An old man named Carl grabbed Jake's arm as he was pushed into a cell. New arrival, eh? Let me guess, they got your colony too. Jake nodded. New Haven, 3 months ago. Carl's face grew sad. Sorry to hear it, I'm from Westfield. Been here 8 months now. The key to surviving is to work hard, keep your head down, and don't cause trouble. The Vorthak don't like troublemakers. What kind of work do they make us do? Jake asked. Maintenance mostly. Cleaning, repairs, moving cargo. The ship is so big it needs constant work to keep running. Lucky for us, they need our hands more than our deaths. The next morning, Jake was assigned to a maintenance crew working in the lower engineering sections. A Vorthic warrior named Zara Keth was put in charge of their group. She was different from the other aliens Jake had seen. Her armor was decorated with strange symbols, and she carried herself with confidence but not cruelty. Jake studied her carefully as they worked. Zaraketh watched the human prisoners, but not like a guard watching criminals. She seemed curious about them, sometimes tilting her head when they spoke to each other. Once, Jake caught her staring at a picture one of the other prisoners had drawn of his family back on Earth. The work was hard but not impossible. They cleaned air filters, replaced damaged panels, and carried supplies to different parts of the ship. Jake used every opportunity to learn more about the Harvester's layout and systems. He discovered that the ship was even more complex than Earth intelligence had guessed. The Harvester was not just a weapon, it was a complete society. There were living areas, schools, workshops, and even what looked like parks with alien plants. Jake realized that the entire Vorthic civilization might be living on this ship, traveling from star to star. During his second week aboard, Jake noticed something strange about Zaraketh's behavior. When the other guards were not looking, she would give extra food rations to prisoners who were sick or injured. She also made sure the work assignments were fair and that no one was forced to do jobs that were too dangerous. Jake decided to test his theory. During a break, he pretended to collapse from exhaustion. The other guards might have beaten him for being weak, but Zaraketh quickly ordered the humans to carry him to a quiet corner where he could rest. "You work too hard, human," she said in broken English. Jake was shocked. None of the other Vorthak had spoken his language. "You understand us?" he whispered. Zaraketh looked around to make sure no other guards were watching. "Some words. I study your transmissions. Your people talk much about families and hope. We do not have these words in Vorthak." Jake felt his carefully planned mission becoming more complicated. This alien was not the mindless monster he had expected. She was intelligent and seemed to have feelings much like a human. "Why do you study our language?" he asked. "Because I wonder if your people are truly animals as our leaders say. You build homes, you care for young ones, you make pictures and music. Animals do not do these things." Before Jake could respond, another guard approached. Zaraketh immediately switched back to the harsh Vorthic language and ordered Jake back to work. But her yellow eyes met his for a moment, and he saw something there that shocked him: doubt, sadness, maybe even guilt. The accident happened during Jake's third week aboard the Harvester. He and Zaraketh were inspecting a damaged section near the outer hull when a power coupling exploded. The blast knocked them both down and sealed the corridor behind them with twisted metal and sparking wires. Emergency lights flickered in the darkness. Jake's artificial skin was torn in several places, and he could taste blood in his mouth. Zaraketh lay nearby, her armor cracked and one of her forearms bent at a strange angle. "Are you alive, human?" she asked weakly. "Yes, you?" "Injured, but living. The emergency signal has been sent. Rescue will come in some hours." They sat in the damaged corridor waiting for help. Jake used his torn clothing to bandage Zaraketh's injured arm. She watched him work with surprise. "Why do you help?" "Me? I am your captor." Jake thought about his mission and the virus hidden under his skin. He thought about Lisa and Katie and all the humans who had died on New Haven, but looking at this injured alien, who had shown kindness to his fellow prisoners, he found it hard to feel only hatred. "Because you're hurt and I can help. That's what humans do." "This is not what our teachers tell us about your species," Zaraketh said quietly. "They say humans are violent and selfish, that you destroy everything you touch." Jake almost laughed. "That's what we're told about your people too. That you're emotionless killers who destroy planets for fun." They sat in silence for a while, both thinking about what the other had said. Finally, Zaraketh spoke again. "I have seen the recordings of the colony attacks. I have watched your people run and scream as our weapons fired. At first, I thought this proved they were cowards. But now I think they were afraid because they had families to protect. Children who needed them. Did you have a choice? Jake asked. About attacking our worlds, I mean. Zaraketh's large eyes grew sad. No more choice than you had about being captured. We follow orders or we die. But some of us wonder if there might be another way. When the rescue team finally arrived, both Jake and Zaraketh were badly injured. They were taken to the medical bay where Vorthek doctors worked to repair their wounds. Jake was worried they would discover his artificial skin and implants, but the doctors seemed focused only on treating their injuries. The Vorthak healing process was strange. They connected both patients to a machine that monitored their brain activity. Jake felt drowsy as the device scanned his thoughts, checking for signs of brain damage from the explosion. As he drifted between sleep and waking, Jake became aware of something impossible. He could sense Zaraketh's thoughts and emotions as clearly as his own. The alien was experiencing flashes of his memories, seeing images of his life on New Haven before the attack. And he was seeing into her mind as well, witnessing scenes from an alien world. Under attack by some terrible disaster, the connection lasted only moments before the medical machines were shut down. But in that brief time, Jake understood something that changed everything about his mission. The Vorthak were not conquering human worlds because they were evil. They were running from something even worse, desperately searching for new homes for their people. And now, somehow, his mind was linked to one of their warriors. Jake woke up in the medical bay with a strange feeling in his head. It was like having someone else's voice whispering in the back of his mind, but the voice spoke in emotions and images instead of words. He could sense confusion, fear, and curiosity. That were not his own feelings. Across the room, Zaraketh was sitting up on her medical bed, holding her head with her 3 good arms. Her yellow eyes found Jake's, and he felt a jolt of recognition that came through the mental connection they now shared. The Vorthek doctors were excited about something. They spoke rapidly in their alien language while checking readings on their medical devices. Jake's neural implants translated some of their words, and what he understood made him nervous. Unprecedented neural activity, one doctor said. The brain patterns are synchronized between the two subjects. Is this caused by the healing process? Another asked. Unknown. We must report this to the research division immediately. Jake tried to act normal, but the connection with Zaraketh made that almost impossible. Every emotion he felt was reflected back to him through her mind, and he could sense her struggling with the same problem. When he felt angry about being a prisoner, she experienced that anger. When she felt guilty about the colony attacks, that guilt flowed into his thoughts. The doctors eventually decided both patients were healthy enough to return to their duties. But as Jake was led back to the prisoner barracks, he noticed Zaraketh following at a distance. Through their link, he sensed that she was as confused and frightened by the mental connection as he was. That night, Jake lay on his narrow bunk and tried to understand what had happened to them. The connection was still there, stronger when he concentrated on it. He could feel Zaraketh somewhere else in the ship, probably in her own quarters. Her emotions came to him like distant music, full of conflict and growing doubt. Then, without warning, images began flowing through the link. Jake saw memories that were not his own. He was looking through Zaraketh's eyes at a world of purple skies and silver cities. The Vorthak homeworld was beautiful but dying. Massive storms of acid rain ate away at the buildings. The ground cracked and split as underground fires burned out of control. Plants withered and turned black. The air itself became poisonous to breathe. Jake watched through Zaraketh's memories as desperate families packed onto evacuation ships. Children cried as they were separated from their homes forever. Old ones who were too weak to travel chose to stay behind and die on their poisoned world rather than become refugees among the stars. The Vorthek Empire was not a conquering army. It was an entire civilization fleeing for its life, searching for new worlds where their people could survive. The images changed, and Jake saw Zaraketh as a young warrior learning about the colony attacks. Her teachers showed recordings of human cities and called them inferior structures built by primitive animals. They said humans were dangerous pests that needed to be removed so the Vorthik could terraform the planets properly, but through the mind link, Jake felt Zaraketh's growing confusion as she watched the recordings more carefully. The human cities were not primitive. They were carefully planned communities full of art and technology. The humans running from the attacks were not mindless animals. They were people trying to protect their families, just like the Vorthak refugees had done. The memory sharing worked both ways. Zaraketh was experiencing Jake's life on New Haven. She saw his wedding day when he married Lisa under the crystal trees that grew in the colony's central park. She felt his joy when Katie took her first steps. She experienced the simple happiness of family dinners and birthday parties and quiet evenings, watching the sunset from their front porch. Through Jake's memories, Zaraketh saw that humans built homes full of love, not just shelter. They made art that expressed their dreams and fears. They told stories to their children about heroes and hope. They were not animals or pests. They were people with the same needs and feelings as her own kind. Jake felt Zaraketh's shock and growing horror as she realized what her people had really been doing. The colony attacks were not removing dangerous pests. They were committing genocide against innocent families who just wanted to live in peace. Over the following days, the mental connection between Jake and Zaraketh grew stronger. They learned to communicate through shared thoughts and emotions. Jake discovered that Zaraketh belonged to a secret group called the Silent Path, warriors who had begun questioning the Empire's methods after studying captured human technology and culture. The Silent Path had learned that humans were intelligent beings with complex societies and rich emotional lives. They believed coexistence with humans was possible and had been secretly working to find alternatives to the destructive conquest strategy. But Jake's presence on the Harvester created a crisis for Zaraketh and her fellow dissidents. Through their mental link, she sensed that Jake was hiding something important. His surface thoughts were those of a captured prisoner, but deeper in his mind she detected patterns that suggested he was more than just a refugee. One night, while Jake pretended to sleep in the prisoner barracks, Zaraketh contacted him through their link. "You are not what you appear to be, human Jake Morrison," her thoughts whispered in his mind. "You have knowledge of military procedures and ship designs that no simple colonist would possess. You carry something hidden beneath your artificial skin. What is your real purpose aboard this ship?" Jake realized he could not hide the truth from someone who shared his thoughts. Through the mental connection, he showed Zaraketh his memories of New Haven's destruction, his volunteering for the revenge mission, and the quantum virus hidden in his body. Zaraketh's mental reaction was a mixture of understanding and horror. She saw that Jake's plan would not just destroy the Harvester's weapons. The virus would shut down all systems, including life support. Millions of Vorthik civilians, including children and elderly refugees, would die along with the military forces. "Your people do not know," she realized through the link. "They think this ship carries only soldiers." Jake felt her distress and confusion. Through her eyes, he was seeing the Harvester as it really was. Not just a weapon, but a massive refugee ship carrying the survivors of a dying world. There were schools where Vorthik children learned about their lost homeworld. There were hospitals caring for the sick and injured. There were workshops where artists created beautiful objects to remember their culture. The mind link forced both Jake and Zaraketh to confront impossible choices. Jake had sworn to complete his mission and save Earth from the alien threat. But now he knew that mission would make him guilty of the same kind of genocide that had destroyed his own family. Zaraketh had sworn loyalty to her people and their survival. But she also knew that the Empire's current path would eventually lead to war with every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Through their shared thoughts, they began developing a desperate alternative plan. Instead of destroying the entire ship, what if they could disable only the weapons while leaving the civilian population alive? What if they could find a way to make peace between humans and Vorthak before more colonies were destroyed? The plan would be incredibly dangerous for both of them. Jake would have to reach the ship's central computer core, one of the most heavily guarded areas on the Harvester. Zaraketh would have to convince other members of the Silent Path to openly rebel against their own military command, but through their mental link, they both felt something neither had expected to find aboard an alien warship: hope, the possibility that this war between their species might end without total destruction on either side. Jake touched the quantum virus hidden under his skin and made his choice. His mission was still to save Earth, but now he had a chance to save both worlds. He would trust in the alien warrior who had become connected to his mind and heart through their link. He felt Zaraketh making the same choice. She would risk everything to help him, not because she was betraying her people, but because she believed cooperation was the only way either species would survive. The real mission was about to begin. Jake and Zaraketh spent the next 2 weeks carefully planning their mission while pretending everything was normal. Through their mind link, they could communicate without anyone else knowing, sharing information and coordinating their activities. Across the vast ship, Zaraketh introduced Jake to other members of the Silent Path during routine maintenance duties. Chief Engineer Mortith was an older Vorthek who had helped design the original evacuation ships from their homeworld. He had grown tired of watching his engineering skills used to destroy other civilizations instead of building new homes. Commander Velzora was a military officer who controlled security in several sections of the ship. She had been questioning orders ever since studying captured human art and music, which showed a level of creativity and emotional depth that contradicted everything she had been taught about human intelligence. The Silent Path had been growing slowly for months, but they had never dared to take direct action against the Empire's leadership. Jake's presence and his mental link with Zaraketh gave them something they had never had before: detailed knowledge of human society and proof that cooperation between the species was possible, but not everyone supported their plan. Ryan Foster was a human who had been captured 6 months earlier and had earned some trust from the Vorthak guards by helping to organize work crews. When Jake quietly approached him about the mission, Ryan was strongly opposed. "Are you insane?" Ryan whispered during a meal break. "These aliens destroyed dozens of our colonies. Millions of humans are dead because of them. And you want to help them survive?" "The civilians on this ship didn't make those decisions," Jake replied. "Most of them are just refugees trying to find new homes after their world died." "I don't care if they're refugees or conquerors. Earth Command gave you a mission, and you need to complete it. Upload the virus, destroy this ship, and let Earth's fleet deal with whatever survivors are left." Jake felt Zaraketh's distress through their mental link as she sensed the argument through his emotions. The plan they had developed required cooperation from the human prisoners, but many of them wanted revenge just as much as Jake had originally wanted it. The situation became more complicated when Zaraketh discovered that War Commander Thalmordith had grown suspicious of the Silent Path's activities. Thalmordith was a hardline military leader who believed the only good human was a dead human. He had been watching the dissidents carefully, looking for any sign of treason. Through their link, Zaraketh shared her memories of Thalmordith's latest briefing to the officer corps. The war commander had announced that the Harvester would reach Earth in less than 3 weeks. Once there, they would not only destroy Earth's defenses, but also hunt down every human colony ship and refugee vessel in the system. Total extinction, Thalmordith had declared. No human survivors, no possibility of future resistance. We will take their world and make it ours, just as we have done with all the others. Jake realized they were running out of time. The original virus upload would take several days to completely destroy the ship's systems. If they were going to modify the plan to save civilian lives, they needed to act soon. The opportunity came when Jake was assigned to a maintenance crew working near the central computer core. The area was heavily guarded, but Zaraketh had arranged for several Silent Path members to be on duty that day. If everything went according to plan, they could create a distraction while Jake accessed the main computer. But as Jake prepared for the mission, Zaraketh sent him an urgent mental warning. Thalmorth's security forces had arrested 3 members of the Silent Path during the night shift. Under interrogation, one of them had revealed the existence of the dissident movement. Jake felt Zaraketh's fear and determination through their link. She was preparing to surrender herself to save the other members of her group. Through their shared thoughts, she showed him her plan to confess to being the leader of the Silent Path, while claiming the humans had no knowledge of their activities. No, Jake projected back through the mental connection. If you're captured, the mission fails. We need another way. But it was too late. Security forces surrounded Zaraketh as she reported for duty that morning. Jake watched helplessly from across the corridor as they bound her arms and dragged her away. Through their link, he felt her calm acceptance of what was about to happen. To her, the arrest of Zaraketh created chaos among the Silent Path members. Some wanted to rescue her immediately, while others argued for abandoning the mission to avoid further exposure. Jake found himself in the impossible position of trying to coordinate a rebellion among aliens, while his mental link with their captured leader grew weaker as she was taken to the high-security detention area. Mortith approached Jake during the evening meal period. "The trial will be tomorrow," he said quietly. "War Commander Thalmorthith wants to make an example of her. If found guilty of treason, she will be executed publicly to discourage other dissidents." Jake felt rage building in his chest, the same anger that had driven him to volunteer for this mission in the first place. But now the rage was not just for his dead family. It was for Zaraketh, the alien warrior who had risked everything to help him find a path to peace. That night, Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of proceeding with the secret virus upload, he would attend Zaraketh's trial and use his knowledge of Vorthok law, gained through their mental connection, to defend her. The trial was held in the Harvester's Great Hall, a massive chamber that could hold thousands of Vorthok citizens. Jake had never seen so many aliens in one place. They filled the curved seating areas, their yellow eyes reflecting the strange lighting as they waited to see justice carried out against a traitor. War Commander Thalmorthith served as both prosecutor and judge, as was traditional in military trials. He stood before the assembled crowd and listed Zaraketh's crimes, questioning imperial policy, communicating with human prisoners, and corrupting other warriors with dangerous ideas about coexistence. The defendant stands accused of treason against the Vorthok Empire, Thalmorthith declared. She has forgotten that humans are our enemies, dangerous animals that must be destroyed for our people's survival. Under Vorthok law, any citizen could speak in defense of the accused before judgment was passed. Jake stood up in the prisoner section and raised his voice. "I request permission to speak for the defendant." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. A human prisoner defending a Vorthok warrior was unprecedented. Thalmorthith's eyes burned with hatred as he looked down at Jake. "You are a slave and have no rights in this court," the war commander said. "Under Section 7 of the Military Justice Code, any being with direct knowledge of the defendant's actions may testify," Jake replied, using information he had absorbed through his link with Zaraketh. "I have that knowledge." Thalmorthith could not refuse without violating their own laws. "Speak then, human. But know that lies will be punished with death." Jake walked to the center of the hall, feeling thousands of alien eyes watching him. Through his weakened mental link, he sensed Zaraketh's surprise and fear for his safety. "Warrior Zaraketh is not a traitor," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "She's a patriot who found a better way to save her people than endless war." He began to speak about what he had learned through their mental connection. The dying homeworld, the desperate evacuation, the fear and sadness of the Vorthok refugees, but also the beauty of their culture, their art and music, and deep love for their children. "Your people and mine are not so different," Jake continued. "We both build homes, we both love our families, we both want our children to grow up safe and happy. The only difference is that circumstances have made us enemies when we could be allies." As Jake spoke, he felt something unexpected happening. In the great hall, the whispers of the crowd were changing from anger to curiosity. Some of the Vorthak were nodding slightly, remembering their own losses and hopes. Through his link with Zaraketh, Jake felt her amazement as other warriors began to stand up in support. Members of the Silent Path were revealing themselves, no longer able to hide their beliefs after hearing Jake's words. The trial was becoming something neither side had expected. Not just a judgment on one warrior's actions, but a debate about the future of both species.